Okay. So in the last class we are considering linear regression. So in case of linear regression, we have this response variable y, which is like which we consider as a real number, and we are trying to predict this response variable y from this like the feature vector x, which is a d-dimensional real vector. And here you should remember that when I say the feature vector is a d-dimensional real vector, it means that there are d minus 1 attributes and one special dimension, or the like which we call as the bias term. So this special dimension has its value set to 1. Okay. So what is the model? The model is y equal to w transpose x. That means what? That means that there is a vector w of again real numbers of the same size or the same dimensionality as the feature vector, and I am predicting y to be, that is the predicted value of y is nothing but w transpose x. Now what this during the training phase, I know this x as well as I know y. During the testing phase, I know x and I know w, but I have to find y. Okay, so in case of training phase, basically we need to calculate or we need to estimate w. In the testing phase, I need to like predict the value of y. So if you as you remember, we had solved an optimization problem to do, or rather first we had defined a loss function in the following.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
Voice is not clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is this better?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, so in the so we defined a loss function like this. The loss function is what we call as the squared error. So yi is like if we consider all the testing variables, or that like the test examples. So let us say that there are n number of test examples. So for every example, I calculate the square of the difference between the true value of y and the predicted value of y, right? And what is the predicted value of y? That the predicted value of y according to our algorithm is nothing but, what should I write here? What is yi hat according to linear regression?
WTX. W transpose x.
Not wtx, w transpose x, not x, xi. I am considering the ith example, so I must write xi. Okay, so this is my loss function, which I call as my squared loss. So what is my job during the so whether this is the training phase or testing phase or anything, whenever I have got a set of values or examples like this is my total squared loss over the over that data set. So in the training phase, when our aim was to estimate w, what did we do? We tried to maximize we try to choose such a w which minimizes this loss function. So we accordingly we solved this problem, right? So this is the problem which we solved, and accordingly we got an estimate for w. So so if you remember, we had gone into some very detailed mathematical calculations regarding like vector differentiation, etc. So and finally we had arrived at an expression like this, say something similar to this. Something like this, where what is x? X is a so like we can write it in write this expression in two ways. Like in one way I can write like this, that is for a, like I can write it separately for each of the vectors, each of the individual feature vectors like this. So what is this? This is the what they call as the pseudo inverse, or sometimes it is called the Penrose pseudo inverse, or actually it's called the Moore-Penrose pseudo inverse. Okay, and then we don't need transpose here. Sorry, I equal to 1 through m. I guess this is the expression which we had written down last time. Now, so just to make just to recap, this is a d cross d vector, and then this is a d cross 1 vector, a d-dimensional vector, and sorry, it will be xi transpose, not xi, not xi transpose, xi transpose, which is a d cross d vector, and xi, which is a d cross 1 vector, and this yi, this is a scalar. Right, so you can just say d cross d matrix into d cross. So that if you add up all those things, we will get a d cross d matrix. You take its pseudo inverse, it's still a d cross d matrix. Then you like calculate this, like this, you get a d cross 1 vector. So d cross d matrix times d cross 1 vector is again a d cross 1 vector, which is what W is. Right. Alternatively, what you can write the whole thing in a different way. So like you can actually construct X as the D cross N matrix. Okay, that is to say, every, like you can actually construct a matrix like this, where every column is basically one of the feature vectors, and there are n columns like this. So the first column is the first feature vector, the second column is the second feature vector, etc., and the nth column is the nth feature vector. Okay, this way you can write it this way. So and then you can verify that what we have written here like this, xi transpose, and then taking the sum of over all, it's like we can as well write it in the form of x like x transpose, where x is this kind of matrix. So x is like d cross n matrix, and x transpose is n cross d, so this becomes d cross d, and then you take the pseudo inverse of it. It's just a different way. See, the same can be said about this part also. Either you can write it like each individual vector you can multiply by the corresponding scalar y, or you can consider as like y itself as a vector of all the responses from all the variables. So I'm just coming to that, just a second. So this is x transpose. So this x is d cross n, this x transpose is n cross d. So what we get here is d cross d. Similarly, now so this x is, as I said, is d cross n, so x transpose becomes n cross d, and what is and what is y? Y is n cross 1. So what is y? Y is basically a response, like the set of response variables from all the n examples, right? So there are, so like if I put it in vector form, this will become n cross 1. Okay, so clearly we can see that this way you cannot write it. There is an inconsistency. So what do? We write it in a slightly different way, which allows us to do the that is, we have to just permute this in a slightly different way, which enables us to make it d cross 1. So how do we write it? Let us write it as x is d cross n. So let me, instead of x transpose, let me write it as x. So then x becomes d cross n, and y is of course n cross 1. So like I can do the multiplication. So I just, this part becomes d cross 1, and I can write it as x transpose whole pseudo inverse x y. Okay, so this is these two things are the same in so this is the vector notation, this is the matrix notation. So anyways, so now, so this is about linear regression. So after that we started discussing one more concept. So we were saying that the W vector which you get like this does not like here the individual entries of this W vector you don't have any control over. Whatever comes from this formula, it will come. Now, yes, in the last class we discussed that there may be some reasons why I may want every element in this W vector to have small magnitudes, right? Each value or each coefficient should have small magnitudes. Now, small I am writing in quotes because I am not specifying how small. I have not said that it has to be less than 5 or it has to be less than say 2 or anything like that. Just as small as possible. So I had given some reasons why I may want W to have small values like this or values with small magnitudes. Can some of you remember the reasons which we had discussed? Why W should have smaller reasons or small, I mean why W should have smaller values? Yes.
If any one W has a large value, that particular feature will have a large weightage, so it might overfit that feature.
Right. So, so each of these coefficients, these are basically the weightage of we are providing to the different attributes. So now, if there is one attribute which has a large coefficient, that means that attribute is getting a like a very heavy influence on this response variable. Now that may lead to overfitting, as you said. It may also lead to another kind of complication. So suppose for some reason this particular attribute has not been measured correctly. There is some error in its measurement. So then what happens, that small error gets amplified many times because the corresponding the weight is large, and hence the even a small mistake in measuring the attribute value has a significant influence on the response variable, so that we can make wrong predictions, right? Otherwise also we may not want any particular feature to dominate over the other features. I mean I may want that also in some situations, but in other situations I may want all the, that is if I am convinced that all these attributes are like none of them are particularly important to me or compared to the others, then I may not want all of them to have like very divergent weights. That is, I should not want one to have a weight of 10,000, another to have a weight of 0.1 or something like that. I will want all of them to have reasonably close weights. For such situations, it may make sense for me to suggest that I want a W where each coefficient should have a small magnitudes. So, but there is nothing in this formulation for linear regression where we try to enforce such a thing, right? Because the only goal of linear regression is to minimize this squared error. So this is sometimes this is known as OLS. This is the OLS stands for what? It stands for ordinary least squares. Why ordinary? Ordinary because we are focusing only on the minimizing this least square error. We are not looking for anything more than that. But what I am now suggesting requires something more. That is, my objective is not only to reduce the error, but I have a different objective also, namely to enforce the particular structure which I want on W. In this case, that particular structure is that each value or coefficient should have small magnitudes. So what I do is as follows. I redefine my loss function. the first component of the loss function is what it was already, namely the squared error. This is basically to fit the predicted values on or fit the model onto the data. Additionally, I also want to define a function on W, such a function which will take high values when that structure which I want is violated, and it takes low value when W actually follows the structure which I want. Okay, so this should have low value, just like a loss function has low values when the error is or when the prediction is good and high value when the prediction is bad. Similarly, this also will have low value when W has desired structure and high value otherwise. Okay, so instead of y hat, let me write W transpose xi, so that the whole thing becomes a function of W. So now what you can see is that like there are two components in this objective function. One is to fit the model onto the data. The second is to enforce the structure on the data. So like this I can call as the empirical part of the loss function, empirical loss, and this I can call as the structural loss. Right? Empirical loss means that is this basically this part of the loss function measures how good the fit is on the data, and this part basically measures how good is the structure of the W, whether the W has the desired structure or not. So now the question is, what kind of function is this f? So I have already specified a criteria for f. So it should have a low value when W has the desired structure, and it should have high value when it does not have. So of course that depends on what that desired structure is. So clearly it cannot be that for different like it cannot be that for different values of or for different type of structures we will use the same function. That cannot happen. So for clearly for whatever structure I desire on this W, I will have to choose a function accordingly such that this criteria is satisfied. Now finding that function may be difficult, but let's make a try. So first of all, before going into the desired structure which we mentioned, let us go to a much simpler structure. Okay, so let us say that let's suggest a very simple structure on W. Let's say that W should be as close to W or as similar to W0 as possible. What is W0? W0, let us say, is any vector which I have already specified. So let's say that I have my favorite W0 vector, W0 vector, with which I want to make my predictions like this, W transpose X. But I know that W0 or W0 by itself may not give a very good prediction. So I have to make some adjustments. I have to allow other values of W, but I am still insisting that this W should be as close to W0 as possible. Okay, so this W0 is a fixed vector. So clearly the f that I want, so like I want to define my function f with fw. So clearly this will have low value if like if W and W0 are somewhat similar, and it should be high if they are not similar. Right? So, so can you suggest a function for fw which takes like which satisfies this criteria? Remember
W
that
minus W naught.
W minus W naught. Okay, so remember that W is a d-dimensional real vector. W naught is also a d-dimensional real vector. So one which we have already heard is W minus W naught. So anyone wants to suggest so clearly so this is since W and W naught are both d-dimensional real vectors, now fw will also be a d-dimensional real vector. But my loss function, the first part, the empirical loss function is like this. It is yi minus w transpose xi whole square. So what is this? Is it is this a d-dimensional vector?
No, sir.
What is it?
Scalar.
It is a scalar. So so since I am adding this to fw, so obviously this fw is, I cannot add a scalar and a vector, so obviously fw also has to be a scalar. So how can I make this into a scalar?
Sir,
You can take
Euclidean
magnitude.
distance between W and
Exactly, Euclidean distance. So I hope you are familiar with this notation. Are you familiar with this notation? Do you know what this means?
No, sir.
Okay.
So, kind of.
This basic, so let us consider any vector x. Okay, forget the feature vector, any vector x. So let us call it as the like a d-dimensional real vector. Okay, so this notation is basically, it is called a norm of the vector. Okay, so now there are many norms, like a norm of a vector can be defined in many ways. So let us define this particular norm. This is called the 0th norm, or sometimes it's also called the L0 norm, L0 norm. The L0 norm of a vector is defined as number of non-zero elements in the vector. Okay, L0 norm of a vector means number of non-zero elements of the vector. Okay, now let us come to the next norm, which is the L1 norm. What is L1 norm of a vector? It is defined in the following way. So what did I write here? Can you then express in words what is the L1 norm of a vector?
Manhattan distance.
Sum of the absolute distance from the
Don't say right. Don't say Manhattan distance. Manhattan distance comes into picture only when I am considering the difference between two vectors. Here I am focusing on only one vector x. If I considered the difference between two vectors, say x and x naught or something like that, then yes, then this would have been the Manhattan distance. But if I am talking about only one vector, then I do not talk about distance. I cannot I cannot have vector is one vector is like a point. I cannot have a distance between one point, right? A distance must be between 2 points. So when I am dealing with just one vector, I simply call it, as someone said, the sum of the absolute values of the different elements of the vector. Right? This is L1 norm. The second is the L2 norm. The L2 norm is defined as follows. Xi square, xd squared. Okay. So what is this? This is like nothing but the sum of the squares of the different elements, and then I take the root over of it. Okay. So in this is the L2 norm. Okay, so this is in general, let P be any number. Okay, so then I can define the LP norm as follows. Just generalizing on the L2 norm, I can write like this. XD whole to the power P. I add everything up and then I take just to the power 1 by P. Okay, so like using this formula, like if you just put P equal to 2, you see that you have got back the L2 norm. Now, as someone already noticed, the similarities between the Manhattan distance and the L1 norm. Similarly, the L2 norm, like I can so now when I am talking about this thing, this L2 norm of W minus W naught, what do I mean by this?
So the Euclidean distance between W and W naught.
Exactly, Euclidean distance. Okay, so the FW which I have selected is just this thing, the Euclidean distance between these two vectors, and additionally I have put a square also on top of it. Why I have put that square, you will see it later. So, but like, is this a valid choice? Does it satisfy this criteria? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes,
sir, it
yes.
will be a scalar.
It does, right? So I can I can say that this is a valid criteria, so I can use it. So instead of FW, let me write it in the following way. Fair enough. So now you can see that this here like as I already mentioned, that this part, the scalar value, this is the empirical loss, where I am basically trying to fit my model onto the data, onto the observations, and here this is the structural loss, where I am trying to enforce a structure on W, and that I have done through this Euclidean distance. Okay, now so this
Sir, when we are talking about Euclidean distance, what is that superscript over there?
What is the what? A superscript, this one.
Yes,
This
sir.
is this is nothing but a square. So this is a real number. I have just taken a square of the real number. I need not have taken it. I could have taken it like I could have just kept the Euclidean distance also. But I am I am making it. There's the squared Euclidean distance for some mathematical benefits, which you will see in a few minutes. Now, like if we did not consider this part at all, suppose when this part was not there in linear regression, then I would have of course got a W which which is close enough to all the data points which I am considering. So so just as, so let me show you this slide. Just a second. So let us say that this is again, let us consider the two-dimensional space only. So let us say that there are only like D equal to 2. Okay, so the W which we are looking for is a two-dimensional vector, which of course which basically means that we have one attribute and one bias. let us say that along this horizontal axis we are plotting the weight of the feature or the attribute, and along the y-axis we are plotting the bias term. Okay. So let us say that the W which I would have got by solving the linear regression problem, or the OLS, the ordinary least square estimate which I just mentioned, is this particular dot. Okay, so like let us say it would have given me the least possible value which I could have attained on that particular data set. Now this the W which I have got here may not necessarily be close to the W naught which I am looking for. Okay, so let us so if this is my W which I have got by OLS, so let me write it as W subscript OLS, meaning that this is the W which I have got by solving the linear regression problem, and the W naught which I desire is here. Okay, so this is the distance which I am getting between W OLS and W naught. So which this is basically that distance, right? So now so let us say that this distance is 5, and let me also say that the error which I got, this error was let us say 7. Let any number 7. So this is 7 and this is 5. Now so the total loss I am incurring is 12. Now what do I want to do? I want to reduce my total loss. So one thing which I may do is I may think that okay, this part I am incurring a large loss. So let me bring just so what is the minimum loss I can get incur from this part? So obviously if I just put W equal to W naught, then I will get a value of 0, a loss of 0 here. Okay. So that is instead of considering WOLS, let me consider just W equal to W naught and make my prediction using that. So if I use instead of like when I am making my predictions, if instead of WOLS, if I use W naught here, then let me see what is the error, the prediction, the least square error I obtain by the new set of predictions. Okay, so like earlier I was making the predictions in this way, WOLS transpose X. Now I am suggesting that I make the transpose the predictions in this way, W naught transpose X. Okay. So in which case will the errors be higher in this case when I use WOLS, or in this case when I am using W naught? Only this part of the error which will be higher.
Sir, W naught.
W naught. How do you know that?
Because we got WOLS by some gradient descent or some by gradient descent, and this is a convex function, so WOLS will be by default the minimum.
So we did not get WOLS by gradient descent, did we? Like we actually showed how to get WOLS through the formula which I was writing. So yes, you can get it through gradient descent also. So but in this it's not even needed, because I actually gave you a closed form expression, right? I actually wrote how to get WOLS. WOLS is this thing, X transpose pseudo inverse XY. Right, so this is the way I got WOLS, but your larger point is correct. What you are saying is that WOLS by definition gives me the least value of this. So whatever, so instead of WOLS, if I use any other value of W, be it W naught or W1 or W100 or whatever, it cannot be any less than this. It can only be greater than this. Now suppose W naught is such that the loss I incur in this case is 10. Okay, so in this case, like if I use W equal to W naught, this loss is 10, which is of course worse than the loss which I would have got in this case, but this loss is 0, while in the first case, in case of WOLS, this loss would be 5. So then which should I choose, WOLS or W naught?
W naught.
And why? And why so?
Because
It
the
is
other
yes.
half of the loss becomes 0 when I use W.
Correct. Correct. So that I am give both these losses as of now are equally important to me. So I am just adding up the two losses, and I am trying to make sure that it's the total loss which comes down. So even if this loss individually increases, I am not that much worried as long as my total loss decreases, and my total loss has indeed decreased from 12 to 10. So I go for W naught instead of WOLS. Okay. Now
18 to 220.
sorry. Okay. So so in this case I decide to take W naught. Now it may also happen that I want to minimize both the losses. That is, I want to feed the data, feed my model on the data, and I also want the structural property on W. But at the same time, it may happen that this is a higher priority to me than this one. Okay. So that is in this case, as you saw, that I incurred some amount of loss here when I moved from WOLS to W naught. I incurred some loss here and some gain here. The gain seemed to be more than the loss, so I shifted from WOLS to W naught. But suppose I want to suppose the loss which I incur in this function in the loss function sorry in the model fitting part is more important to me than the loss I may incur in this part, because that is making W closer to W naught may not be of a great priority to me. I will prefer if that happens, but it's also okay if it does not happen. But these I cannot compromise with. In that case, what I will do, I will multiply a factor called lambda, which in a sense gives me the relative importance between these two things. So in this case, suppose I set a value of lambda to be something like 0.1. So in the so I am setting lambda to be 0.1. That means what? In the first case, the loss that I incurred is 7 plus 0.1 times 5, which is 0.5. So the loss I incurred is 7.5. In the second case, the loss I incurred is 10 plus 0.5 times 0, which is again 10. Okay, so in the first case, like if I use lambda equal to 0.1, then for WOLS, my value is 7.5, and for W naught, my loss is 10. So clearly in this case, I will go for that is WOLS only. I will choose WOLS over W naught. Why? Because in this case, so although my error in the structural error came down to 0, but the loss I made in the other part is more than what I can afford, right? So that's why I decide yes.
Why are you taking a fraction of the structural loss, sir?
Why? So basically, why I am taking a fraction. So basically, there are two things. I want to like give a relative importance to the two things. So instead of taking a fraction, I could have also so when there are two criteria which I try to simultaneously minimize, but the two criteria may be somewhat opposite to each other, then I may do, I may give some kind of weight score to both the criteria. That is like it may happen that doing two things are simultaneously important to me, but doing one is a bit more important to me than the other one. Say suppose like you like want to like suppose you like suppose some of you during your preparation of JEE found that the syllabus of JEE is very different from the syllabus of your state board exam. Okay, so that is you cannot simultaneously do well both in your state board as well as in your JEE. So there is that is you cannot study completely the complete syllabi of both the things. So you have to make some compromises. You will have to leave out either some portions of the JEE, or you have to leave out some portions of your state board, right? So what will you do in such a situation? what you will do is you will consider your priorities. Which is more important to you? Is the state boards here, is cracking the state board exam more important to you, or is the cracking the JEE more important to you? And so you have to, so you may actually give some important score. That is, if like you may think that cracking the JEE is like twice more important to me than doing well in my board exams. So in that case, you may like give a higher priority to the JEE syllabus compared to your state board syllabus. So here also I am doing somewhat similar to this. Here both of these two things I am giving an important score. So the important score of the first one I have fixed to a value of 1. I could have kept given a different value also to it, but let me I do not want to play around with too many numbers, so let me just fix this value to 1. So it is this number, so since this is fixed, the score of this is fixed to 1, I want to change or I want to play around with the score of this thing. Okay. So what does that mean? That so if I may make this lambda as less than 1, which will mean that this is less important to me than this thing, that is the fitting of the data, or I may make lambda as say greater than 1, say 3.5 or something like that, in which will mean that making W closer to W naught is more important to me than fitting the data. So as you could see in this case, if lambda was 0.1, that is the exact value of 0.1, 0.1 is not that important. The thing to be noted is it is less than 1. So if I make this as less than 1, that means I am giving a higher importance to minimizing the loss, I mean minimizing the error, and that is why in this case I chose WOLS over W naught. Even though when lambda was equal to 1, then I had chosen W naught, right? So similarly, what happens if I choose lambda equal to 3.5? In that case, the loss in the first case is 7 plus 3.5 into 5, which is, so this part becomes 17.5, this part is 7, so I get 24.5. If it in the second case, the loss becomes 10, this becomes 10, this becomes 0, so 3.5 into 0, which is still 0, so I get 10. So in this case, my loss is significantly lesser in the second case of W naught, so I go with W naught. But in the first, if I had set lambda equal to 0.1, then I had decided to go with WOLS. So this basically what I am trying to suggest here is that you have a sense of which is more important to you, minimizing this error or enforcing the structure on W which you want. So this parameter lambda basic, yes.
How do I get W naught?
How do I get W naught? So assume that W naught has been given to you. I assume that you have your favorite W naught and you want your W to be as close to W naught as possible. So where it came
Sir,
from
but
is
if I already know W naught, can I not just place W equals to W naught?
You can do that. So if you do that, then you will acquire, then you will incur some loss. Now whether that loss is that loss will come from mostly this component, because then this part will become 0. Now the question is whether the loss you will get by setting W equal to W naught is low enough for you to afford. If you instead of W, that's what I am saying basically. If you had put W equal to WOLS, then this loss would have been low, this loss would have been high. If you put W equal to W naught, then this loss would be 0, but this loss can be higher. If you put some W which is neither WOLS nor W naught but something in between, then this will also have some loss, this will also have some loss. So it all depend. So in all these cases, you will basically have to consider a weighted sum of these losses and then see which you can afford, in which case that total weighted loss is coming the least. Okay, so if this lambda basically allows you to put the weight, lambda equal to 1 means both of them are equally important to you. Lambda less than
So,
1 means
sir, W naught is something that I decide, right?
yes,
And it could be anything.
it could be anything.
Okay.
It is your favorite W. So
Okay.
if you go for your favorite W, then this part is 0, but you can incur some loss in this part. If you go for WOLS, then this loss will be less, but this loss can be high. If you go for some other value of W, which may be say this W or maybe this W, then both of you will incur losses in both components. But the question is what the sum of the weighted sum of those losses will be. Will it be less than the loss you got from WOLS? Will it be less than the loss you got from W naught? We don't know. So we have to try out different W's and see. Of course, you can. It is not possible for you to try all possible values of W. So we'll have to solve some optimization problem. But the important message here is that this lambda parameter basically allows you to make a balance between the this empirical loss and the structural loss. Okay, so that is a decision again that is in your hands. How much importance you want to give to these two losses. In some applications, it may happen that the empirical loss is very important to you. In some other applications, the structural loss may be important to you. So lambda basically balances the two losses. Okay. Now, so what is the problem which I am trying to solve? This is the problem which I am trying to solve. So let's forget what is the exact value of W naught, what is the exact value of lambda. Let us just say that I know these things. So I write it in the following way. This is my function of total loss function in terms of W. So what do I do once again? What I do is I again solve the this equation. I again take the derivative of the loss function with respect to W. I again go about doing the vector differentiation as I had done last time. So again, I will skip some steps for the benefit of time. So it becomes somewhat like this. So this part is just like your normal differentiation. So you apply the chain rule. The exponent comes down. You get the this expression from the quadratic form, it reduces to the linear form, and then you get, so when you just take the derivative of W transpose Xi with respect to W, you get just minus the Xi, and the minus sign is here. This Yi is constant with respect to W, so this becomes 0, so I just get minus Xi, right? So just to check that the dimensions are all consistent, we'll check whether the dimensions are all consistent. Here the lambda is here, the like when you take the, this is like very much analogous to scalar differentiation. So that your 2 comes out here, 2 lambda, and what you get here is just W minus W naught. This like, I mean, this is the same thing. If you had if instead of if W and W naught had been scalars, and instead of this L2 norm you had just if you had just the this thing, and you have taken the derivative of this thing with respect to W, then also you would have got the same thing, right? So here also you are getting the same thing. The only difference is that it's in this case what you have got is a vector. So this is a d-dimensional vector. This is also a d-dimensional vector, so you can subtract them, and this Xi is also a d-dimensional vector, right? So now what we can do is we can rearrange all these terms, right? So so basically now we have to play around with a bit of algebra. So let us try to do this quickly. So the factor of 2 you can just cancel from both sides because you are equating it the whole expression to 0. So you just play around with a bit of algebra. So it becomes like this: yi xi, you have a minus sign with it. Here you get plus I equal to 1 through n w transpose xi times xi plus lambda w minus w naught equal to 0. So what we are interested in this case is of course w. So I will send all the non-w terms on this side, and I will and I will try to take the w as a common factor. The problem here is that here I have w transpose, here I have just w, so I cannot take a common factor out. So I will do some mathematical trickery. This I will write as xi transpose w. I write xi transpose w as xi, and then again doing the old trickery which I had done last time also, I will write this as w xi transpose. Okay. And this summation can just come inside. So let me write it properly. Let us say the non-w terms have all gone away on that side. So here I have brought the w out as a common factor. Inside the bracket I have this thing, summation I equal to 1 through n. This I have rearranged as xi transpose plus lambda times I, okay, is equal to, on everything else has been moved to this right hand side, so that is yi xi I equal to 1 through n plus lambda times w naught, right? So just to make sure, again check the dimensionalities. You can see that this is a d-dimensional vector, this is also w naught is also d-dimensional vector, so you can just add them up. Right hand side is a d-dimensional vector. Now the question is about the left hand side. So so what is this w? W is a d-dimensional vector. So sorry, that's a mistake here. The w is on this side, not on that, on the right side. Just pardon me for that. W is like this. So here you can see, you can just check. So this xi transpose, as we had seen last time, is a d cross d matrix. It was the same case in case of linear regression also. In case of, what is this I then?
D cross D identity vector.
Identity matrix, d cross d identity matrix, right? So now I have got, so this whole thing is a d cross d matrix. That is, I have just added up all these d cross d matrices to get a d cross d matrix. And what is w? W is a d cross 1 vector. So like when I do the multiplication, I get the vector d cross d times d cross 1 is a d-dimensional real vector, which is the same on the right hand side also. So that way, so now what I can do, I can pre-multiply both sides with what? I need w, right? So to get w from this situation, what will I do? Quick, we have seen this earlier. How do I pull out W from this situation?
So I multiply both sides with the inverse of the left side of W, whatever that is.
Not
Xi
the
transpose.
inverse, but the pseudo inverse. The
Yeah,
Moore-Penrose pseudo
pseudo-inverse.
inverse. Right. So this is the expression which you get in this case. Plus lambda W naught. Okay. So now you can check that if lambda is equal to 0, then what happens? Lambda equal to 0 means, remember that lambda is the relative importance of the structural loss. So if lambda equal to 0, then the structure is not at all important to me. So if lambda equal to 0, then what happens? If the
W is
structure,
equal to WOLS.
then W is equal to WOLS, right? Then the does this expression suggest that if I replace lambda equal to 0, then do I get back the expression for WOLS? Right? If this lambda becomes 0, then this goes away. If lambda equal to 0 means this part also goes away, so I get back the old equation of WOLS. Okay. So now consider so this is the special case which we have considered. Now consider the special case of W not equal to 0, the origin, that is the 0 vector. Okay. So the W naught, as I said, is my favorite vector. I want W to be as close to W naught as possible. Now W naught, as I said earlier, is my favorite vector. Now suppose the W naught is the origin, which basically means the d-dimensional 0 vector. The d-dimensional 0 vector. Okay. So in that case, what happens to this? What happens to this expression? So this expression is fine here. Instead of W naught, I will just get 0. So this part will just go away. So what I will get is just this part pseudo inverse, this part except this, right? So but theoretically, what does it mean to when I say that W should be as close to the origin as possible? Theoretically, it means that the Euclidean distance between the whatever W I am choosing, the Euclidean distance from that to the origin should be as low as possible. And if the distance from like if this distance, if the Euclidean distance of W from the origin is low, then what can I say about the individual elements of W? What can I say about this part or this part? Quick. We are out of time. Quickly answer this question. If this is my W, if this is the W and this origin is my W naught, this is the distance which I am talking about, right? The Euclidean distance between W and W naught. What I have achieved is that I am trying to bring W as close to the origin as possible. That is, I am trying to constrain the Euclidean distance between this and W naught. So then what can I say about these two things? I can say that these two things will also have to get constrained, right? That is, it cannot be that like if this distance is I am like making it smaller and smaller. I am trying to make it as small as possible without compromising too much on the other loss. Then obviously both these as well as this will have to come down, isn't it? There is no way like any of them can go up. So doesn't that mean that this way what I am achieving is actually same as what I had initially wanted to do? That is, force each of the elements of W or each of the coefficients of the different attributes to be as small as possible. Right?
Yes, sir, it is.
So that basically means that when I put W not equal to the origin or the zero vector, what I am actually achieving is that I am bringing that is, I am trying to find such a solution W where all the elements are, or all the coefficients are as small as possible, subject to the constant, this constant that the squared error also cannot be arbitrarily large, right? So that is, it is important to me to both achieve both things. One is that the W must have small coefficients, that's the structural constant. The other is the empirical constant, that is my loss should not be too high. But so like basically what I am trying to do is I am trying to achieve a balance between the two things. So if I just write it, I know that we are past time, but just quickly let me write it. W transpose xi square plus lambda. So W naught has been set to the zero vector. So I am just writing it here. So this W hat is nothing but argmax W. That is, I am trying to find that value of W which helps me to minimize this whole thing. Now this lambda is a tunable parameter in your hand. So the expression for W naught so the W hat in the, as we saw in this case, comes out to be something like this thing. I xi transpose plus lambda I, take the Moore-Penrose inverse of, or pseudo inverse of both things, plus xi yi. Fine. So you can see that this is same as linear regression with only this lambda I term brought in here. Everything else remains unchanged. So this is basically known as ridge regression. And what does it help you to do? It helps you to achieve that all elements of W have small values. So this is the structural property which we enforce in this way. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this class. So tomorrow, yes,
Sir, here there will be like these are two summations, right? And there should be a
yes,
plus sign in between.
this is one summation. So like you sum this over all the n times. So this, over all the n data points, so that you get a D cross D matrix here, and here you have a plus sign. You are adding it with lambda I, which is the another D cross D matrix, right? So this whole thing becomes a D cross D matrix. You take its Moore-Penrose inverse, so that still remains a D cross D matrix. You multiply that D cross D matrix with this thing, which you can work out is a D cross 1 vector. So the whole thing becomes a D cross 1 vector.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay, so this is the story of ridge regression, which allows you to find such a W which makes a balance between the error with the prediction error which you make in the while also making sure that all the elements of W have small values. if instead of keeping w that is if we instead of keeping w close to the origin, that is if instead of choosing w not as the zero vector, if I had chosen some other value of w naught, then also I could have I would have got something equivalent to this, except that like that w would have come in as a term here, as it did in the previous page. Okay, so this is like an example of what we call as a regularized regression. So in the next class for 5 minutes, we will discuss another use of regularized regression before moving on to our next topic. So before I close the class, can anyone tell me why I put this square instead of the Euclidean distance on the Euclidean distance, or what would have happened if I had not put this square?
Sir, a negative error is also an error. So all the errors should be of the same weightage.
That's a good try, but the Euclidean distance by definition is always positive. That is, even if we did not consider a square, that is then also this would have been a positive quantity only.
Sir, it would be difficult to separate W.
Exactly, that is the answer which I wanted. It is not. It's the reason is not theoretical, but it's only purely procedural. That is, calculating this derivative would have been difficult. That is, we are calculating this derivative and then equating to 0, then solving an equation. This would no longer have been possible had I not put the square here. Conceptually, it would have still remained the same, but only the mathematical tractability would have been lost. So there is nothing sacrosanct about the exact functions which we are choosing. As long as the general requirements are satisfied, we are free to choose the mathematical functions in a way that will help our calculations. Okay? So with that, since we are long past time, we'll stop today's class, and tomorrow